think we've had a wee technical hitch here because appear to be live a little bit early. Might as well chat to you guys while we wait here. So, Dead Aussie Gamer, how's it going? So, yeah, so the plan is, I think this might be our last session together doing Charles Hoffman. I think probably what I'll do is I'll move on to something else next, and I'll do what I had been doing previously, where I finish off the bits and pieces that we work together on stream. So hopefully you can see it's quite blingy. Do you know what? Let's bring the camera in just a little bit more, I think. Nope, that's the opposite of what we want. There we are. I'll take this away so we're not overexposed. Good evening, weirdos, wherever you're tuning in from, and welcome to another Play Weird stream. My name is Ben. I go by the moniker Ashenhold Art, and I will be your host for the next couple of hours. So, first of all, apologies. We had a couple of little technical hitches just there, but we are good to go now. All up and running. Just thought people would want to see Ben's smiling face early. But it didn't even get to see my smiling face. It was my pensive concentration face while I tried to set up all my stuff. So, yeah, so sorry you had to see that. Anyway, we're here. Woo! We are actually getting fairly close to the end of Hoffman, the end of painting him, rather, not like, it's not that Hoffman's done or anything. Don't worry. Anyway, yes. So, we've got Hoffman here. I've got him on a. I thought this was a better idea rather than you guys constantly having to, look at the top of his head or just see me handling it. So I think I might keep this little piece of foam on hand so that I can just lay the thing down and you can get a decent view of him like that. So where are we at with Hoffman? We've maybe got a little bit of I would call it snagging. Some people would call it tidying up, but basically what we mean by that is maybe little bits and pieces that we need to address before he's completely finished. But before we do that, we want to have everything completely done so that we get a good, complete picture of of how everything's looking. So I went and finished up the legs, as you will see from last time, and they're looking nice and bling bling. I'm not too sure. You see, we've got these kind of drums on the inside of the legs here. I'm not 100% sure if I'm going to leave them steel. I'm thinking I might paint them brass. Maybe. But I've still to do a little bit of the edge highlighting on the steel parts of the legs, but you can see that the brass is more or less done there. And I've even put a little bit of verdigris in there. You know, I didn't want it looking too dirty, but if you know anything about like brass and copper and things like that, you'll know that those metals oxidize very, very easily. So it means that even if they're really well looked after, there's a good chance you're going to get a little bit of verdigris on them somewhere. Plus, it looks cool. I think it looks cool. It gives us a little bit of shade. And the other thing that's quite neat is what I did for that verdigris. And I'll actually show you guys how I do the verdigris on stream sometime. But what I did was I did it all just using regular paints instead of using metallics or anything like that. And what that means is that you get another type of contrast there, right? Because you've got the metallic versus a component that's non-metallic, or gloss versus matte. So just another neat little bit of contrast to get in there, make our model a little bit more interesting to look at, make him read a bit better. Verdigris is a fun word to say. yeah, I like it. It's a good word. So that's where we're at with him. Some finishing touches that we'll do once we've done what we're working on today, which is the backpack. Okay. So there's a little bit more going on in the backpack than in the legs, if you see, because we've got some cables. We've got this sort of antenna component that we'll need to have a look at. We've got some brass, we've got some gears, things like that. We've actually got the top of the straps here that I've not done anything with that. And we will do a little bit of OSL with the flame. I don't want to go overboard with it because I think that OSL is one of these things that has a tendency to, if it's not planned properly, it's got a tendency to just completely like wash out the whole model. So we're going to keep it fairly confined. So if you think about it this way, right, the way that we've painted Hoffman, he looks pretty much like he's standing outside in the middle of the day with the way that the light's falling on him, yeah? So by that logic, it wouldn't make sense for us to have a blue glow all over him, because if you were to stand outside with a blowtorch close to your face, don't do this, okay? But if you were to stand with like a naked flame in the middle of the day, close to your face, you would see the flame that would be visible. Let's say like we're holding like we've got like a tiki torch or whatever, we're holding it about here. That flame would register, that would be present, and you'd maybe get a little bit of glow like in the immediate vicinity of that flame. But because the daylight is so much brighter and so much more powerful, that light source completely overrides this. So it wouldn't make sense if we're painting a model who's standing out in the middle of the Badlands in the middle of the day for him to have like blue like washed all over from the glow of the blowtorch. So we'll still do that. We'll still make it look cool, and we'll have a little bit of glow and a little bit of reflection around about it, but we don't want that to dominate. We want the focus to be Hoffman and on his face, and then anything else that we're painting, it should frame his face, and it should draw focus up to there. So Okay, well, anyway, I think what we'll do is we'll start by painting some of the bits and bobs that are going to be different colors and such. So I've got this little piece of foam to hand, and that's just so that I can rest this when I'm not using it. But yeah, I should probably talk about this before I go on actually. So this is basically I use this primarily for drilling. This is what you call a pin vise if you've never seen this before. And basically all it is exactly what it says in the tin. It is a tiny, tiny vise for holding very small things. And all I've done here is, so you should be able to see we've got the plastic areas of the model here where there's no paint on it. So that is going to be covered up when we finally go to glue that onto Hoffman's back. So what I've done right at the bottom here is I've just drilled that out and I've just put a tiny bit of super glue on the head of this piece of wire and I've put it up there so that if I do like one quick pull on that, that'll come right off and there'll be no visible signs when the model's completed of it being done in sub-assemblies. So we just pop that back in there for now. Now the reason that I've gone there rather than like up in here, or I've not just put it onto a cork like so, is because I want to paint it. Just straighten it a little bit there. I want to paint it sitting at an angle as it is going to when it's complete, if that makes sense. So because brush the mess. So because this is upright as it's going to be on the finished piece, it means that any highlighting and any shadow that we do is not going to conflict with any of the work that we have already done. It's all going to read in a way that's very natural and makes sense for the model. Whereas if we had just sat that on top of a piece of cork down like that, then you might find that some of your stuff would look a little bit wacky in relation to the work that you've done on here. So that's something, if you ever want to work in sub-assemblies, that's a good bit of practice to get into in general. You don't need to use a pin vise for that. Even you could, like say for talking's sake, what have we got here? Right, so I've got the brutal effigy to the side here. I'm going to be working on him at some point, so he's going to be in sub-assemblies as well because of the size of him. But you see how he's got this the pine box that sits on his hip just here. So what I will be looking to do when I go to start painting this is I'll drill a little hole just here where it's not going to be visible when it's fully painted. I'll super glue the wire in there, and then what I'll do is I'll actually have it sat on the cork so the wire will come over like this kind of idea, and the thing will be sat like that. So it means that when I'm painting it, it is sitting at the angle that it finally will. So it means that again, everything reads correctly, because that is a trap that a lot of people fall into when doing sub-assemblies, is that the way that the light and the shadow falls on their sub-assemblies often doesn't end up uniform, and it's because they've not paid attention to that through the process. So yeah, just quite a bit of preamble there, but hopefully some helpful advice for you. But without further ado, I think we are going to start with a little bit of Go To for Black, Negro Black by Vallejo Model Color. Great tip, thank you. Yeah, hope that helps. And as far as what to use for wire or for gluing your little sub-assemblies to their bases, you can use paper clips. I've got a big spool of wire that I use. Just make sure it's nice and sturdy, but it's thin enough that you'll be able to drill a little pinhole that won't be noticeable. but you want it to really be able to hold its shape. Otherwise, it'll be flopping all over the place. It'll be no good to you. So, black. And if anyone has any questions while I'm painting this, please feel free to chime in with them on chat. Always happy to answer any questions you might have. If you're painting along, love to hear about that. Floppy is not good. No, it is not. So, reason I'm doing this just now, if you guys haven't watched me painting before, is it's just going to make it easier to read everything else. A little bit more water in there, I think. There you go. So that's just a little cable there. So just gonna do that in a sort of black color, make it look like vulcanized rubber. If any of you guys, well, I don't think too many of you will remember it, but some of you, if you've worked in old houses or in construction before, might be familiar with that. Basically, just it was like the insulation that they put onto electrical cables back in the day. Worked fine for a long time, but if you ever go into an old house and it's got vulcanized insulated rubber on the cables, then you need to be really careful, because sometimes you're talking about wires that are over 100 years old. And that kind of insulation gets really brittle with age. We don't need to worry about that on Hoffman. He's in the 1900s. That cable's brand new. No, they use mainly they use thermoplastic on cables now. And then it will be it'll be like usually it's double sheathed. The fancy name for it is thermoplastic insulated sheathed cable. I think they're they use thermoplastic and everything now, because that thermoplastic's resistant up to 75 degrees Celsius. So that's what it tends to get spec'd for houses. But then if you're talking about factories and things, they'll use a mineral insulated cable, and people will call it pyro for short. And that has a copper sheath on the outside, and then if you were to cut it open, like have a cross section of it, you'd have the copper sheath on the outside here, and then you'd have all this white powder in here. It's usually magnesium oxide they use for that, and then you have the individual conductors on the inside. They use cable like that in distilleries and things like that. So yeah, I guess maybe some stuff you could use if you're doing terrain, things like that. Cables don't always need to be black is the point, but how do you know so much? I'm an electrician to trade. I trained as an electrician, so yeah. Hoffman will be fine with vulcanized rubber. I imagine he does a lot of maintenance, so yeah, I imagine he would. Yeah, so I do apologize. This is obviously all just like, written into my brains. I just rattle it off without even thinking. Yeah. Cable facts. Cable facts with Ben. Maybe make it a regular segment on the Play Weird stream. I'm glad I'm not boring you. Cable facts with Ben. I'm painting this sort of antenna thing black because I figured it looks kind of bendy, doesn't it? So, do you know? I think it might actually be an exhaust. I'm realizing that's okay. If it's an exhaust, what I'll do is probably paint it in a much darker metal just to make it look a bit grimier. Well, do you know, see in our hobby, do you know something I've realized is that there is no knowledge that is not useful to us. Because, I mean, if you've got a bunch of like random animal knowledge, you can use that. You can use it for your paint schemes and things like that. You could use it for your conversions, like coming up with monsters and stuff like that. If you've got a load of random building knowledge, you can use that for painting terrain or even coming up with your own. There's literally no knowledge that is not useful. To us hobbyists. All of my random electrical knowledge as well. Quite useful. If you know a lot about clothes as well, that's another good one, right? If you understand how different weaves are formed, that's knowledge that you could use for putting different textures on your miniatures clothes. So all kinds of useful stuff if you're Miniature painter. Oh, there. Okay. I think we've got these kind of coil bits here. They look as though maybe they're like pneumatics. So I imagine that they would be rubber. And even if they're not, we're going to paint them like that because that's going to let us put another little bit of contrast into there. Yeah. It's, I always think being a makeup artist would be like a really good transferable skill to go into miniature painting with. Because your understanding of painting faces would be phenomenal. Need to leave now. I just want to pop and say hi. Thanks for popping in, Eleanor. I'll maybe catch you another time. I'll make a point of trying to pop into your own stream, of course. I usually do, even if it's just to check in on you guys. I like to see what the other Play Weird streamers are up to. Well, I'm glad you're enjoying watching the process. Oh, I had no idea you were a thesp, Doug. Thespian. Yeah, so you had to study makeup when you were doing your degree. I actually know a couple guys that excuse me, taking a drink. I know a couple of guys that just they have some makeup tutorials just saved on their YouTube accounts that they refer to for painting faces. And I'm sure Doug will be able to correct me if I'm wrong here, but they actually use a lot of the same language that we use for painting faces. They talk about highlighting and contouring, things like that. So I'm actually quite a big fan of, see, when I'm out and about and I see something that looks interesting, I'll just take a picture of it. You know, people maybe give you funny looks when you see you taking pictures of rusty old fences and things like that, but it's stuff that I find really neat. Stuff that you can definitely have a go at integrating into your painting. I'll maybe show you guys if because I've been sent a little scenery kit, one of the quarantine zone scenery kits. So I think maybe I'll show you guys some of the pictures that I've taken, and we can have a go at trying to recreate them on plastic. That could be a fun little thing for us to do. I've actually got some lots of plans for you guys for little things I'm gonna hopefully talk to you about in the future. things we can work on together. And just have a good old fun time just painting miniatures here on the Play Weird stream. Don't remember studying makeup when I did theatre, but I learned. Okay, yeah, cosplay. That'd be useful again. Folks don't realize, like, like people that are properly into their cosplayers, they use the Dremels, the hot foam cutters, everything like that. Got a lot of very practical skills, cosplayers, from what I've observed. Since I have a general theatre degree, not just an acting degree, I had to study makeup, costuming, light and sound, and set design, in addition to my acting stuff. It's easy to sort of overlook makeup as an art. It really is. Yeah, for sure. So some phenomenal makeup artists out there. And it's that way that they can completely... If you think about what like really sophisticated fancy makeup is doing, it's basic... Oh, excuse me. It's basically freehand work. It's the same principle where if you consider for a minute that they like I seen a makeup artist where like she had like no chest at all, and what she did, like she had this top on where you could see like her collarbone and everything, and then like just using makeup she painted basically so it looked like she had a plunging neckline, and she did the highlighting and the contour and everything, and very convincing stuff. And they do little things like that, which in essence, you think about it, is freehanding, right? Where you're given the impression that a surface looks completely different from what it is, that there's detail there that isn't. It's cool. That they come right up the way, and the reason that they have them is so that the engine doesn't flood if that vehicle has to go through water. So I'm thinking maybe Hoffman's got the same thing, right? Doesn't want to flood his engine. Yeah, good talking to you. Oh, I have to be careful with portals. Oh dear. I will be vigilant. Keep a sharp eye. Get some bits here I think I've missed. Let's get that black right down in there. Appreciate it. Yeah, I'll get some pictures up on my socials for you guys when he's all done, so you can get a good look at him. And then I'll try and get the rest of the crew done. This is going to be my very first Malifaux crew. Oh yeah, I did. I reached affiliate status over on my own stream. Yeah, thank you guys. Thank you for the shout out, and I know some of you guys also you follow me on my own stream from here as well. Appreciate all the love. Hoping to flesh that out quite a bit over the next little while. So yeah, keep an eye on that if you're interested in watching me paint little plastic men and women. This is 2021 after all. Okay, I think that'll do for now. Maybe go back and do a little bit more of that. So I think the next thing is, although when I was doing Hoffman here, when I did the brass along the legs here, what I did was I actually just painted the brass straight onto the metal, because I want this to read a little bit darker. I'm gonna start some Rhinox hide on that. So this pot's getting a little empty. I'm gonna need to get some more soon. Just getting my windows sorted. Okay, so there's quite a few things that we're going to base coat brown here. So we get these tabs. Whoops. On his backpack here. They're actually leather. So we need to get them done. And done. go back and sort that a bit more once it's... So what we want to do is select these gears in here. Get that. Like that. I'm not necessarily saying that, like these clockwork components are always going to be this sort of colour. And as much as we've talked quite a bit today about using real life references and how you can get some cool results with that, really all is about the rule of cool. So if something doesn't necessarily make sense according to laws of science or rules of whatever kind of painting then you're doing, but it looks good, then just do what looks good, because it's all about maximum visual impact. Rule of cool trumps all, as Doug says, and it's true. It's 100% true. I can actually guarantee you, if you tried to paint something to look 100% realistic, it probably wouldn't look very interesting. So use a little bit of artistic license, but by all means have a go at using some real life references. You can get some pretty cool results that way. What is your favourite aspect to paint? Metal, skin, clothing? That's a tough one. Do you know, I've got to say, I like being able to paint all of those things, because it can get really boring if you end up doing an excessive amount of one of those. So I would say I like being able to do a bit of everything. And I feel like a lot of the best models have a lot of those things within them. To be honest, I mean, let's look at them. I'm talking about it just there. Look, the reason that Hoffman reads so well is because there's so much contrast within him. Yeah, because you get this really nice pale skin color, really smooth. You get the clothing that's all sort of ruffled and creased. It's got that softness that fabrics have. But then you've got the shiny hardness of the metal. I've really enjoyed painting this model. Like I actually have enjoyed painting them a lot more than I thought I would. And it's because you've got a little bit of everything on them. So, to be honest, I would actually encourage you guys, if you're watching and you really want to push yourself, even if you don't want to paint Hoffman, find a model like this where you've got a decent amount of exposed skin. You've got leather, cloth, metal, because they're all different textures that you want to read quite differently. But you do also want to try and attain a sort of visual harmony on it as well, if that makes sense. So although you've got the cold steel colors like right down here, you still got it kind of tied together because you've got the warmth of the brass here, which ties nicely to the warm colors of his clothes and his skin. But you know, we got some like down at the edges and these shadows here, we got the colder tones as well, so it means that it all reads nicely. It just all goes together really, really well. And then you put that verdigris in there. So, to be honest, I would say that that's really a good rule for creating visual harmony, is to bring contrasting elements together. For example, you get the warm brass with the cold verdigris, so you get visual harmony with the steel and the brass, more so than you would if you had just brass and steel, if that makes sense. Use traditional 2D techniques on a 3D surface to make it read properly. Or are you saying that in agreement with what I was saying about you're not always going for full realism? Is that what you're meaning? I think because I've gone off a little. Yeah, that's what I thought. Yeah, exactly. He does. He's got a lot of different materials on him. He's just a really cool model. Oops, try that a little bit. Yeah, or exaggerated, right? So your highlights are maybe a bit brighter and more stark than they appear in real life. I mean, if you painted a lot of metals exactly as they appear in real life, it'd be hella boring. A lot of metals not as reflective as we would paint them on our models. Oh, I'm just getting the back end of those gears. Like so. Just letting that brown red flow down into between all those little gaps. Yeah, exactly. I mean, like, look at the. I mean, here's a good example. Look at the size of Hoffman's hands compared to his body, right? His hands, and the thing is, like, in the game world, he's not necessarily considered to be someone that's got gigantic hands. It's not a feature, but they just read better when they're exaggerated that little bit more. That's a good example on him. Those hands can palm dash his head. Like basketball. Yeah. Kawhi Leonard's jealous of those hands. I think we'll maybe do joints, press. I think we did them, but we'll leave them like that because we want them to read a little differently from the grubby gears in here. These are going to be all oil, and then also they're in more shadow than those, so that's why we're going to build these up from this kind of color, like so. Okay, so we're reading a little bit better now. I think what we're going to do next is put some of the brass in. So, although we're calling it brass, we're using Pro Acryl bronze for that. We keep that looking pretty much the same tone for the metal throughout. There we go. So we'll do the brass, and then I think we'll do some shadow and then see how it's looking from there. And I think probably what I'll do is tidy them all up off stream, and it means hopefully at some point this week we'll have I'll have my very first finished master. Woo! Oh, nice! Is Pro Acryl and Scale 75 winning. Both solid paint ranges. I'm excited to see what you do with them. Okay, so we're going to do these brass along here to the edges of the pauldrons. Rolling out the fancy words again, all the fancy language, pauldron. But if you didn't know that, that's the proper name for shoulder armor. It's a pauldron. Oh, you had a little go at non-metallic metal, did you? How'd it go? Reads his metal. Yeah. Oops. Focus. There we go. and hid them behind grass. I must admit, it's something that I have not worked on as much as perhaps I should have. A lot of people will dismiss non-metallic metal, saying that they prefer true metallic metal, and that's something to be said for preferences, right? But I'm working a bit on non-metallic metal at the moment with the person that I get painting lessons with, and that's Tommy Sewell, the miniature painting tutor. So if you're interested in like really pushing yourself, I cannot recommend private lessons enough. Well, the thing that he says about non-metallic metals is that even if you're not going to use them, non-metallic metals really teach you volumetric highlighting. That's, in a nutshell, why you should learn non-metallic metals. Because even if you're not going to do non-metallic metals on your own painting, there are lessons to be learned from doing them. They teach you a lot about contrast and reading light and shadow on a model, especially when you really get into the minutiae of non-metallic metals. But yeah, I agree. I think they're both good to know. I actually think that, to be perfectly honest, true metallic metals are actually very often more poorly understood than non-metallic metals, and it's for the simple reason that people don't tend to blend them. Metallic paints. And maybe part of the reason of that is because they behave so differently from regular acrylics. They maybe do like freak people out a little bit, I guess. Yeah, exactly. It really throws you in the deep end with regards to understanding volumes, gradients, etc. Oh, there. Starting to read a little better. We'll probably do another couple quotes over these, but we don't want to be messing too much with the base coat, so just let that cure a bit before we start messing around anymore. Oops. Do you know? I think you would get along really well with Tommy, Doug, because you're corroborating a lot of the stuff that he teaches with stuff that you're saying right now. Very well indeed. I think maybe we've got this. It looks almost like it could be knuckle duster or something, so I think I'm going to do a little bit of brass there. So if you seriously want to push yourself, you should get in touch with Tommy. Teaches you some pretty invaluable stuff. I think you get along well with him as well. To quote someone I was talking to at the weekend, he's as mad as a badger. It's a great phrase, isn't it? Mad as a badger. I'll drop you a message with his details if you want to get in touch with him, because he can do. I'm actually only going to be meeting him in person for the first time later in September. Been doing all my lessons with him just over conference call, so could definitely sort you out. It's a good phrase, isn't it? Mad as a badger. You may be thinking it's looking a little bit blingy for a mechanic right now, but we are going to knock that back a bit, get a bit of verdigris on it, so it's going to read a bit more like, excuse me, the legs there. So, not to worry. Really nice paint, this though. Don't need to mess about with it too much to get it to go on, which is always, I think, can be a bit of an issue with metallics at times, but not so with Pro Acryl metallics. I think when you put a little bit of brass on, it just gives it a bit more of a steampunky feel to it too. Makes it feel a bit more whimsical, I guess you could say, a little bit more malifaux. Yeah. A bit more of an old worldy feel to it, I think, when you get a bit of brass on it. I think when it's just straight silver or chrome or whatever you want to call it, it can look maybe a bit too modern. This arm's going to look a little bit different because it's got the blowtorch on it. Brass definitely does make everything feel steampunk though. If I ever get round to doing the recently revealed Charles Hoffman inventor, I think because he's supposed to be, oh, he looks like he's a little bit, he's maybe gone up in the world a bit. He's got that silk waistcoat or vest. I think we might use a bit more brass on that. Maybe make it look a bit cleaner. Brass or possibly copper. That could be good. Copper can look quite steampunky too. All right, Doug. Enjoy your meeting. Thanks for hanging out with us for a bit. Hope it's productive. Looks maybe like that's supposed to be the fuel can there, so I think maybe we paint that like a red color or something. So we've got a little bit more contrast in there. Oh dear, there's a little bit of a... Oh no, we're a bit there. Let's get you out of here and tidy that up properly later on, I think. Let's not fuss over that too much just now, because sometimes if you fuss over a little mistake like that, you can end up making it worse. So. Let's see if it's... Yeah, we'll need to knock that brass back quite a bit, I think, but once we highlight that and put a little bit of the blue shading in, it'll be fine. drink a. I am. So I've been looking at a few different builds. I think I've got more guild stuff at the moment. Because I think the obvious thing for me at the moment is to do Hoffman, Melissa, 3 hunters, and Brutal alongside that, and then just I think at least to get me started, just go nuts with dishing out upgrades. But I've been looking at some other options, and I think running them as Arcanists is really appealing to me, having read quite a few of the rules. And what I was thinking of doing was Arcanists, but then doing a couple of Saboteurs alongside, so that I could get the so I could upgrade my hand size. I can give them both the I forget the name of the upgrade, but basically it's the Arcanist upgrade that if the model you give it to has the minion keyword, then you get to increase your hand size. So that's basically what I was thinking. A couple of Saboteurs, and then also I thought it would be quite neat to add a mechanical rider in there. I thought that could be cool. So I got a couple of ideas. I think pretty much every crew I've come up with has hunters in it, though. It's just, why wouldn't you? Hunters, and I really like the Watchers as well. Just been able to chuck around scrap markers. Because I was thinking also, if I went Arcanists, I could potentially just veer away from keyword and run some Foundry stuff as well. I thought that could be interesting. I've got some ideas. Lots of cool stuff that I can add in to bulk them out. Hopefully have a decent wee collection of constructs. It's the plan. I'll get a little bit more of this brass done, and then I want to start doing some shadows. A little bit more agua in there, I think. There we go. That's starting to read quite nicely. Good bit of contrast to it now. Witchcraft. You were saying before we started recording, Playweed, you're gonna have a bit of a go at sketching. I wonder what a sketched Malifaux model would look like. Oh, do you know what you could sketch that would look really neat? Actually, is this guy. He's big enough, and there's a lot of big empty spaces where you could really go to town with all those brush strokes. Yeah, you could do a lot of the bigger models, right? Yeah. Could definitely do a bit of sketching on that big. I have a goal, but it's a secret. I'm looking forward to seeing what it is you're planning. Okay, I think that'll do us for now with the brass. So let's do a little bit of the shading then. So what we do for that? So black, and then we're going to mix it in a bit of black metal, just like we did here. Take a wee. So a good way of getting your metallics to really have some depth, whether you want to call that different values or volumes. A good way of doing that is to mix your metallics with a little bit of regular paint. So this is just some, do we want to focus camera? There we go. So it's just some black, and then I guess what you would call like a gunmetal color. I'm just going to mix them. I want to keep them fairly close together. So when I'm mixing, I'm sort of folding the paint on the palette into each other. So we want to keep that all close together because it means that it's not going to dry out as quickly. Yeah. So you'll see that this paint that we're about to use, it still looks very much like a metallic paint, but it's just darker and it's not as glossy, which is perfect for doing our shadows. So like here, if we examine the way the light behaves on this, You almost got like a bit of a highlight up here, and then it gradually gets darker down to here. So what we're going to do is a wee blend just down there. So I take a little bit of paint, add a little bit of water into that. And then I'm just going to push that down into there, like so. And it's subtle, but just what you can do is if you do multiple little strokes like that, it'll give you a little bit of texture. Or if you're a little bit neater than me, you can do it in one, get smooth. But we just watch to see if that, we don't want to do anything more to it until it's dried out. But you can see, actually, where at first it looked a little bit patchy, it's not too bad. But we're going to do it again, because we want to push that contrast a bit more. So we just, what we do is we increase the pressure as we come into here. Like that was a little bit messy. That's okay. So, and then what you can do is while it's still wet, you just a little bit of, oh, that's why you keep a bit of paper towel there, stop you from flooding it. That was a schoolboy error you got to see now. You probably see that's made my blend quite patchy now, because that water just came in and went, pulled that down there, but don't freak out. Just do it again. Like so. And then, so it means we're depositing most of the pigment down at the bottom there. And then just a wee wet blend in there, like so. I think you spoke too soon, Play Weird, because I messed it up right after you said I made it look easy. Just gonna. And then you can even use a slightly denser mix just to punch a little bit more shadow in there. Just like that. And then if you've got patchy bits, you can just kind of glaze them out. Doing a little bit of that kind of thing. There we go. That's a pretty decent looking blend we've got there. So hopefully you can see from that when you're blending metallics, it's pretty much the same techniques you would use if you were blending anything else. And just little bits in here and here. Oh, it's a wee bit stark. Just take some of that off, I think. That. That down a bit. So something you'll maybe notice is that this is actually very similar to non-metallic metals. It is a very similar approach. And you know, the funny thing is, depending on what sort of light you photograph a miniature painted in this style under, it actually will read like non-metallic metal. All those little bits and pieces. They're all going to help us with the final effect. Get these kind of vents here as well, and there. And then you want to just make small changes at first, because if you make too many changes, and you end up making a mistake, it's harder to backtrack once you've made more changes. So we just sneak up on it. Just those small incremental changes, like so. That side's a little bit messier than there, but I'm not gonna goof around with it too much just now. Go back over some of these areas. Is there anywhere we think we can maybe push the shadow a bit more? And we will. Just remember that we still to add some of the highlights and things in, so It's always better to put all your colours in and then make an assessment than I need a little bit more water in that. There. Hi, Eleanor. Welcome back. Just doing a little bit of true metallic metals. It's a little messy just now, but we'll refine that as we go. There we go. That's a bit better. There. And, oops, too much. Let's try that again. Go. That's good, that one there. That's a good one. You can see a tide mark from where I flooded that pauldron earlier. Envious of your brush control. It's just practice, I guess. Also how you hold it. You'll see some folks when they're painting better, so they'll actually hold their brush sometimes like this. Maybe like this. Really, you should hold it like you would hold a pen or a pencil. Yeah, then you've got much more control. So if you're doing these loose, holding it like this, you can get these broad painterly strokes. Maybe there's a time and a place for them, but when we hold it like this, you can go crazy. Yeah. It pretty much just works like a pen or a pencil, and then it means you've got the control that you would have over a pen or a pencil. So I can write my name. That was a bit rough, but yeah. And, yeah. That's actually a good little point, is that if you're struggling with brush control, it might just be as simple as the way you're holding the brush. Maybe you don't even need more practice. You just need to look at the way you're holding the brush. So this is going to be different from this side because obviously a lot of light's hitting in here. So it's going to be a little shadow here, and then there's going to be a bigger bit down here. What a mess. Wait for it to dry before you do anything with it, though. That's the best advice I can give you guys. And then we can really sell that shadow. You can put a real dark patch right down in the corner there. Yeah. Little one here. Right, you know what? Instead of jumping all over the place, let's work on this bit. Let's work on this bit for the next bit. You guys can hopefully see some stuff. So, switching to thrash metal now, which is one that's a little bit lighter. And we've got, if we look at what we've got here. So, let me just blend that in. Like so. And then we've got that ding, that light bouncing off that. And then if it's still, like we've got a little bit patchy there, so what we can do is we can take a little bit without mixing of the I thought maybe I had some in the palette that wasn't mixed. Let's take a little bit of black metal. And you can just blend that in a little bit. Try that and then have a look at it. So we've got a little bit too much coming down there, so go back to that mix that we made. Black, metal and black. And glaze that out. And we might need to take a couple of goes at that, but get there. Main thing is to let it dry before you tinker again. I've maybe made it a bit too dark. If you've done that, you just go back to the pure black metal. And then we can like so. And just be careful you don't get a big droplet of water flooding it like I did. I can still see it's there. So just going to keep working at that. And just very gently still a bit of it there. Just a bit here. So rather than blending and ending up throwing the whole thing off, I'm just going to dab it. Get rid of those bits there. So it's starting to disappear there now, but I do need to go back to the corner here. Darken that back down because some of that lighter pigment made its way down there. Back to thrash metal. So it's a lot of the when you want to start getting like fancy with your painting, it's not necessarily getting to a place where you're not making mistakes. It's knowing how to fix them. That's the big difference. So I've got this dark patch in here that we want to get rid of. So what we're going to do is we're going to do one here and one here. Try and get rid of that in 2 strokes. We'll see if we can do it. So 1, 2. See how it's looking. Getting there. So at the top, you can see we've managed to get rid of a lot of that. We've still got a little bit at the bottom here. A bit messy. There we go. Just going to paint that in like that. Then what I'm going to do is work around it a bit. So I'm not going to make it quite as watery. Actually, do you know, I think we're better with a bit of thrash metal. And then I'm going to go back to black metal. Ashenhold Art has generally agreed to subject himself to Waldo's Wheel of War. Oh man. What have I done? What have I done? And then, because I've not got a lot of time left, just very quickly. Excuse me. We will highlight that. And then keep this really tight. But we do a little bit of line right next to that shadow. Can I do it? Quickly, quickly, quickly. There. A bit rough, but it's the general effect we're going for. Okay. Thank you for joining me once again. I will get Hoffman all done and dusted and get some nice pictures of that for you up on the socials. We've got the links there, courtesy of Play Weird. Otherwise, I will see you on Wednesday for Waldo's Wheel of Woe. Bye-bye.